excited to introduce Greg James, who is currently the executive producer for the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501(c)(3) organization that promotes as its mission atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. The ACA does this through YouTube shows like The Atheist Experience, Talk Heathen, Truth Wanted, and the nonprofits. Greg is directly responsible for all aspects of production and promotion of the shows and the ACD in general. Sorry, the ACA in general. I'm so used to saying the ACD on here. Greg grew up in Southern California and after graduating high school went on to Cal State Northridge, where he majored in computer science. After finishing college and after a brief stint as a recording artist, he went on to work as a web developer, creating interactive content for the Hollywood movie entertainment industry, which he did for over 20 years. Approximately 5 years ago, he moved to Texas and got involved with the ACA. Greg has been married to his wife Annette for nearly 30 years, has one daughter, and recently became a grandfather. Congratulations. And when he isn't working on show related things, which I don't know how he has time for anything other than that, he enjoys playing video games, watching movies, and doing some CNC related woodworking. Greg, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a little bit of a strange feeling for me to be in front of the camera rather than um, kind of directing things behind the camera. So,
Well, we are so glad that we were able to twist your arm into coming on the show. I know this is one of your first in front of the camera appearances, so we are honored that you decided to spend it with us. So thanks for being here.
it's kind of fitting because I feel like both the ACA and RfR have kind of a long-standing relationship with each other. Obviously,
Absolutely.
on most of the shows, if you watched any of the shows, anytime anybody is looking for some sort of um, advice or help with specifically things that our hosts are not really particularly either educated or licensed to talk about, and we probably wouldn't even do it on the show anyway.
Mhm.
RFR has always been the first reference that we give out, and that's just because we understand who you are, the good work that you guys do, and it feels like just a natural partnership to be able to give people resources that will actually do them good without introducing any sort of religion or thing like that. So,
Oh, and we certainly appreciate it. I know the ACA was one of the first places that I ever heard about recovering from religion because I have been watching content from the ACA for years. And it was great to learn about all of those resources from there. And we've had several ACA folks on the show too. So
good.
definitely am indebted to y'all for that. And I know we'll hear the results of the poll later for how long that's been
I
going
was
on.
going to say, don't give it away.
Yeah, not yet, not yet. And in fact, I am gonna hand it back over to Daniel and Glenda here. Now I have to step away for a little bit, but I cannot wait to watch the rest of this episode later on when it airs. And
Okay.
so happy to have you on. And I definitely wanna hand it off to Glenda and Daniel too. So let me do that.
Thanks, Kara. Okay, cool, great. Yeah, so Greg, how did you get started in atheist activism? I gotta say, the atheist experience was massive to me when I first stopped being religious and started looking on the internet for, you know, perspectives that would back me up and how my mind was developing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oddly enough, I kind of got into activism I won't say by mistake, but from a non-intentional point of view. When I moved to Texas, roughly about 5 years ago, I believe, I had made a trip out originally because we were thinking we were doing like a exploration kind of trip to see where we might want to live and things of that sort. And I did what every good atheist should do once in their lifetime, which is visit the Mecca of atheism, which is the Free Thought Library in Austin. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge to anybody thinking about doing it. Um, but I happened to go on one of the Sunday show days. And while I was waiting for the shows to begin, I was talking with some of the crew members there. kind of looking at what they were doing, what kind of technology they were doing, and the technology they were using, the software was the same software I used in the things that I was doing for the movie industry. So I kind of got to talk shop a little bit with them there. And one kind of truism about the ACA is if you come and you're interested in volunteering and you find out and they find out that you have a particular skill, they will utilize you to the extent you will allow them to develop that skill and help out the ACA, which I really do. So, but when I came to the ACA, I was not thinking about doing anything with the shows. I was actually, because I was a programmer, I saw the very sorry state of their website, which was maybe America Online plus 2 years. It was just horrific. So I said, I know how to do this stuff. Let me come and hang out and kind of help you there. And for whatever reason, they were kind of working with another company on it. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just kind of hang out. But as I talked to them more and more, they were kind of, well, would you be interested in kind of coming in and helping out on the shows? I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. I mean,
That
sounds good.
you know what I call that, Greg? I call that stepping on the rake of more work.
Oh yes,
Step on it constantly.
in that case, I lined up about 10 or 12 rakes and successively stepped on each one of them at any time. But so no, I kind of got a little bit more involved with that. Started coming more regularly. I lived about 15, 20 minutes away from the library, so it was fairly easy for me to come in for the Sunday shows and do those. And just kind of slowly kind of worked my way into the system. Started doing a little bit with some of the shows and was really enthusiastic, as a lot of people are, about the content that's going out. So I was kind of interested in helping anyway. And I actually, at one point, became the producer, the volunteer producer of Truth Wanted, which is the Friday show that we do. Got more involved with that, was having some good success, was able to get one, I guess, I don't know if he would be considered a B actor, C actor, was able to get him to come on and was doing a lot of things because Dan, who was producing the show, was producing and hosting and doing everything on the show by himself. So I wanted to kind of help out a little bit there. But yeah, so it kept going. And then COVID kind of happened. Well, didn't kind of happen. COVID happened. And we had to shift from a paradigm of going into the studio every single week and doing the show and doing it and figure out how we can do it without going to the library, because Austin actually put a shutdown order, so you can't go into any public buildings, and technically the library is a public building. So I was helping them with that process because, again, I had experience on doing sort of remote broadcasting. And then as time went by, the previous executive producer stepped away from his position. And at that point, I guess because of my involvement, they asked if I would be willing to step into the position. And it was it was a wonderful thing to be asked because I had seen all of these people who I respected very much talking about and who, like you, were instrumental in kind of me moving away from a religious mindset. And now to think that I would be not just involved with it, but I would be kind of leading that initiative to continue the shows going. It's a lot of imposter syndrome going on there, a lot of I'm not sure I can actually do this, but they've had the confidence in me and kind of told me, make the job yours.
Mm.
Take the shows where you think they need to go. And luckily, I've been able to get a lot of good help with that. But yeah, so didn't intend to do it, didn't apply for it. I just kind of was offered and was in a position to be able to accept. So
Sometimes that's how our best nonprofit roles are filled, honestly,
yes.
in my experience of it. It's just stars align and then you fill a position. So what would you say? Did you learn anything after taking the role, now that you've been in this role? What would you say was one of the most important things that you've learned or that surprised you, I guess, that you weren't expecting about this role?
I think one of the things that really stands out in my mind is that for the most part, you kind of have a perception of the host that you see on the show. You see this host and he's talking about this thing, and it seems really official. It seems really well informed. Um, what I found out, and luckily by kind of working in entertainment industry, I didn't really have like a starstruck kind of mentality. So I could be around people that I'm seeing all the time on YouTube and just talk to them individually. But kind of one of the refreshing and one of the cool things is that for the most part, people who you see on the show with a lot of positive attributes are that same way in real life when you're just sitting there talking to them, eating pizza, drinking root beer, of course. But um, I mean, the realization is they are just general. They're just people. They're doing the best that they can. They have special knowledge, or they have education, or they have certification in different things. They're willing to and able to communicate that in an effective manner. But it just all comes down to they're they're just people. They're down to earth people. They go grocery shopping, they wash their clothes, they do their dishes, and then they come on and do a show for 90 minutes. So, um, no Hollywood kind of egos for the most part involved with it, just good people. And I was kind of, after dealing with a lot of, I won't name names, stars, and knowing how egotistical they can be, it was really refreshing to come in and kind of see just these are just people trying to do good.
I love that. I love that answer. So you've been, and correct me if I'm wrong, again, you've been in this position for 5 years, I believe.
Yes.
In the 5 years, I always compare things in the, not, I hate to do this, but the Trump timeline and how that has changed public discourse, has changed conspiratorial, paranoid thinking, the types of calls. As somebody who consumes, I go and watch the ACA and the atheist experience and those things, and the types of calls and how that has evolved over the past half decade. What are your takeaways and what have you seen from some of these, from the types of calls that are being received?
I've seen a bit of a shift, I guess, in maybe I don't want to call it sophistication of the individuals, but the uh, attempted sophistication of their arguments. If you watch a lot of the shows early on, it was a lot of, well, why don't you believe in Jesus? Um, he made a difference in my life. Why don't you believe in him? Why do you think he's fake? Um, to now where we've got individuals coming on quoting philosophers and things that I have never heard of on topics that are possibly tangentially related to belief, but and I think that's possibly due to an emergence of media portraying the more I want to air quote professional apologists, the William Lane Craigs, the of their ilk, who come up with these very wonderful, intelligently sounding arguments, which inspected for even a brief period of time start to fall apart. So I think the shift has been more from a genuine, and was especially true on when the Atheist Experience was on public access television, because they didn't advertise. The only way people found out about it is when they were channel surfing with the old clunky remotes, and they would come across this thing and see a title of "We don't believe in God. Do you? Tell us why?" And we would get the furious callers in there with just this basic arguments. Well, I had an experience in my life. God showed me, and I don't want to go down to some of the dumber arguments like God helped me find my car keys, or God gave me the parking space right in front of the store today when I asked him for it. Not that we haven't gotten calls like that, and it's just remarkable to see. But I think people are, and maybe this is something that the atheist experience and other shows of its kind have been able to do. People are seeing them a lot more. They're seeing these arguments that they think are super compelling, basically ripped apart, opened up, showing every flaw in the argument, and they're thinking, okay, I can't use that one. I need a better one. So that's why I say I think the arguments are trying to be more sophisticated, but they all seemingly come down once they're kind of deconstructed to the thing that we often see, which is the whole, well, you got to have faith.
I
You just got to believe it.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about we've now been in the I'm showing my age. I was enough to remember the advent of the internet and when that became a thing. And I think now if you've been around long enough, gone are the days. I mean, when I was a kid, one of the arguments, legitimate, genuine gotchas was just look at the trees, just look at the flowers as
Yes.
why proof of God? And I think now we've had several decades now of just exposure. I mean, a fire hose worth of exposure, but exposure to arguments, apologism. And I think that combined with there's probably something to be said about this fervent kind of content creation, performative nature of people wanting their moment in the spotlight, of people wanting their like all caps YouTube thumbnail clickbait, this atheist destroyed in 30 seconds type of
Yeah.
like feverish content creator just in insanity that I think that we're all a little over at this point, but it's just the media landscape that we live in.
Yeah.
And I am curious with your callers or the callers that you see that yeah, that too of how do people find the show to call in. I've always I don't know if I've ever gotten an answer. I mean, I know that on back when we used to use Twitter, that's how a lot of callers would call in to know believers. Your guess you're scrolling Twitter and the algorithm feeds you like, do you believe in God? Or call us and argue. I don't know how these people find these call-in shows, but I guess they do. And I know that you have some very dedicated fans that call over and over and over and over
Yes,
again.
we do.
You've got and you have a robust moderation list to handle
Yes,
Yeah.
those callers.
we do.
But I wonder how, I mean, is if you wanted to share about where is your outreach or these people, how is it, how do you feel that they're being found now of these believers to call in and argue? And what's the, I'm sorry, I have so many questions. What's the median age range? What's the, I'm so curious.
I'm also wondering, like, to add on to that, like, because I found you guys like years ago, like at least a decade and a half ago on YouTube. Just, I was watching The Amazing Atheist and stuff like that because that's where the internet was, that's where atheism was. How has the algorithm been towards you guys? Like adding on to Glenda's question, because I wonder about this all the time. We stress over this with our own content here at RFR. Like, are you still relying on the YouTube algorithm to push stuff out? Like, what is your promotion like? It's yeah.
Yeah. In general, we kind of have approached it from a few different standpoints. Um, Number one, we try to stay current on kind of the state of, and I hesitate to say the state of the algorithm, because that is just the big nebulous box that everybody has an opinion on, but nobody really know. I don't think I think there are engineers at YouTube, and I think it's that case where they split the algorithm development in between five people, and the other four people don't know what the fifth person is working on, and they black box it to that extent, and only a few people know about it. But we try to do what seems to work, and we do that on several kind of different fronts. Um, we understand that one of the biggest factors, especially today, is kind of the doom scroll mentality that we get from channels like TikTok, and it has kind of converted itself over into YouTube to an effect. So we realize that we have maybe 2 seconds to entice somebody to watch a show. So we will come up with very clean graphics, very easily readable text at any kind of thing for our thumbnails. And then we will, not in a clickbaity way, but we will kind of come up with an enticing title that goes towards what the actual content is. We're not going to be um, atheist host destroys preacher, and then you get into the video and it's kind of like, oh, they were just kind of talking about stuff, and the preacher said, yeah, I can see what you say. And it's, I try not to be very clickbaity because I hate watching videos in that way. So we do kind of, the biggest thing on YouTube videos is going to be the title and the thumbnail. That's what people see. Secondarily, what we see in their analytics is that you have about 10 seconds to hook somebody into a video. And I have experience with this myself. If I open up a video and the first 12 seconds of it is a guy staring at his camera trying to figure out if his stream went live, I'm gone. You've already lost me there. So that's why you may see on a lot of our shows right now, we do what's called a cold open. So we don't have an intro anymore. We show the host and he jumps right into something that is relevant to kind of try to hook those people in and keep them watching through the show. And we've seen doing that has increased that first 30-second threshold that YouTube likes to look at from anywhere between 30 to 40%. And now we're kind of consistently getting about 80% of the people who click on the video to
Wow.
continue watching after 30 seconds.
Wow. We've mentioned this, but this is something that we're in a constant trying to grow and evolve and change with the rapidly changing times with RFR of our social media and our content creation and what we do to reach the most people. On my own personal social media, I know, like, I if I post about RFR, I post about it with an old modeling photo because that gets the
Yes.
algorithm. If I just post about something, just text, or if, God forbid, I share a link, if I share just a link on, an atheist community or something buried, nobody sees it. Whereas if I post it with a picture, 200 reactions, dozens and dozens of
Yes.
comments, so I understand that you want to avoid doing clickbait YouTube titles.
Yes.
But that's how it works though. If you're a YouTube content creator, that's what gets people to watch the videos. It's just how this double-edged sword, if you don't want to be obnoxious, you want to be true, but you want to,
Yeah.
you're there to make content. You're there for people to consume this content. Daniel, I'm sorry, you had like a second part to that question, or you had something else? Because I feel like we primed like 5 different questions.
Well,
Tell us more.
It's okay, Glenda. We're very excited to talk to Greg, and that's why I'm like, it's cool. You're gonna get to talk to him. So yeah, no. I'm look. Here's what I'm thinking about because there's an entire universe of atheist debate going on like Clubhouse and Discord, and I'm thinking about what you said about people being a little more, you didn't want to say sophisticated necessarily, but sounding like William Lane Craig or using those very eloquently worded,
Yeah.
yeah, like what's the word? Apologist arguments. And like, you know, I remember when Darth Dawkins popped up on the internet and everyone was a pre-supper suddenly, even though it's a pretty sad line of questioning. And like, shows like yours were banning presuppositionalist questions. I don't know if the atheist experience has a policy on that. I don't know if Darth Dawkins has called you guys. Can you speak to that? I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, I was can you get, for those who don't know, can you explain very briefly what those things are? And because we do have some newer, sometimes we have newer viewers.
True.
I don't know what presupposition, like it's good to do a little primer.
Yeah, we're
Yes.
like atheist nerds here. Yeah.
I know.
To my understanding, and again, I will very quickly disclaim myself from being any sort of expert, but presuppositionalism is generally when you start from your conclusion, i.e., God exists. It's kind of the antithesis of the scientific method, where you might start with an idea and you research and then you make a conclusion. Presuppositionalism kind of turns that in reverse. So I'm going to make a conclusion and then I'm going to find very obscure arguments to support that conclusion. And if you are not familiar with that kind of way of having people talk about religion, it seems fairly compelling. But again, luckily, we've had enough experience and we've had people not just participating in the shows, but we have people who have watched the shows for years and now they host the shows. So they've got this kind of wealth of seeing how different people deal with those sorts of arguments. And they will come up with uh, kind of rephrasings of how it's been, but they'll also come up with their own kind of novel interpretations of how to deal with those things. Um, but yes, the kind of the hallmark of a presuppositional apologist is they read from a script. And the best way to kind of interrupt a presup is to make him get off his script. So, and we've seen this. It's to the point where we're listening to this person talk and we're hearing him turn pages in his notebook to go on to the next thing that he needs to say. And we'll call this out. It's like, do you need a moment? I know you're looking at your script there. Do you need a moment to find where your place was? Just things to basically throw them out because once you get them off that script, their arguments, all they're trying to do is frantically get back to the point where they're at and continue. And you'll hear a lot of people say, um, well, you're not letting me finish my thing. Yes, I know, because we can recognize you are reading this thing. And we'll ask you a specific question. You'll talk about this very vague thing, and we'll say, okay, what exactly does that mean? And they'll repeat exactly what they said. And we're like, no, 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 no. Break it down. We're stupid. Tell us in like fifth grade language what that thing you just said means.
Yeah.
And you'll hear them stammer and they'll stop and trying to get around actually, and they'll return back to what they just said. And we will, it's a tactic we use to number one, confirm they're basically reading off their presupposition script. And number two, to identify to the audience that these people are just parroting what they've heard. They're
And
not,
what's infuriating is that like, yeah, they'll come at you with, "Oh, God is necessary for all logical," blah, blah, blah. And like, even if that stumps you, that doesn't prove God, and that's not why they believe. That's
yeah.
not what convinced them. That's the most infuriating thing about that line of questioning. It's like you're just saying stuff that you read that you think will stump someone.
I'm begging you on my hands and knees to speak for yourself or give me your own thoughts and not parrot
Yes.
the thoughts of somebody, and of course, then it all breaks down to when they're put in that position, it always boils down to if you are able to get them there. Well, it's just something I know in my heart to be true. It's like, well, okay,
Yes.
I guess we're done talking then. Like if that's like you just know in your eye, I can't, I mean, so on that, I can imagine I have felt this way watching because sometimes I love watching these shows, but sometimes I have to just stop. I have to turn it off. Like I can't do this anymore. I can't listen. How many times do you have like a callus on your forehead for the amount of time you bang your head against the wall of I can't listen to this argument any more. What are your emotional regulation coping skills that you have to engage with or utilize to deal with just look at the trees and flowers again. I'm curious. I'm like, what are you behind the scenes? Is it just white noise now? Is there anything that's new that you hear? Is there any fresh take on proof of God that you hadn't heard before? Or was that done, you know, 5 years or 4 years and 11 months and 20 days into the job?
Um, Actually, we have a fairly kind of unique coping mechanism, and that's just a factor of how we produce our shows. I know a lot of people are used to kind of single content creators, and they are the person on camera, and then when they're done on camera, they go into their editing software, they edit all their videos, and they post them, and they do all the social media stuff. On any given show, um, and it actually increases a little bit for the atheist experience. We have a crew of somewhere between 10 to 15 people working on any individual show. Um, we have two video operators. We have a primary video operator and a secondary operator because everybody works remotely. We have two audio operators. We have call screeners. We have show notes takers. We have social media moderators on not just YouTube, but other platforms at the same time. So we've got a crew of about, like I said, 10 to 15 people. And our coping mechanism is some combination of listening to the caller's first few words, and I don't want to call it bingo, but we start calling out where we think the call is going to go.
Oh,
That's
be
really
so petty with
funny.
this. I'm sorry. I would genuinely have a bingo card and a game, and I like dee, or just
Well,
like I have a whiteboard in the back and just start circling the bingo
yep.
points.
We did have virtual bingo cards at one point. And we would put the link out in the chat before the show. And I think Look at the Trees was like the center space.
Yeah, because you know it's gonna come up.
That's
Yeah.
the
But
free
yeah,
space. That's the free space.
yeah. But we do, I mean, I'm tempted, although I would probably catch hell for doing it, but I'm very tempted to kind of do like a behind the scenes series of all the stuff that the crew says, because the crew is much more aggressive and critical of what the callers are going to say. Our hosts have to be there and until it reaches a point, and there a kind of a point of inflection between we're going to treat you with respect or no, oh no, you didn't. Now I have to put you in your place.
I feel this to the core of my being because we deal with some stuff like this at RFR and with among the if you want to be a part of this inner circle, you need to be a volunteer. So
Yes.
if you want to know our little inner chats, that's but being on that side, and I think you should just make it like a Patreon tier where then you get to hear the behind the scenes when this caller, because some of the callers are so egregious and I just if I was yes if I was working in the back you would just hear gremlins screeching from across with some of the points that these callers make. It always, so one of the most egregious ones, and I'm sorry I use that word all the time, it's one of my favorites, is anytime at these talk shows you're able to pull up that Exodus verse that defends slavery, and every time you just watch the moral scaffolding of somebody who considers themselves an
Yes.
ethical person just crumble and fall away. And it's and then you're screaming on in response of you're supposed to be this at least somewhat good person, and you look at you here working so hard to defend some of the most reprehensible shite that's ever been
Yeah.
written by man. And I can't, I mean, do you feel, has this lost or gained your faith, as it were, haha, in humanity? Because I can imagine on one side with the atheists, you see very inspiring things and very lovely things, but has this made you a little dead inside to hear all these questions? Like, I'm not trying to be so harsh, but I, it's a combination of both with here at RFR of sometimes like I feel with the impact of religion on some people, it's hard to kind of come
Yeah.
away and feel positive about life in general. But then we see all the good stuff of the communities that we've built, and that's really inspiring. So I just wanted to know where you felt like you were.
Yeah. I mean, there are times, and I feel like I run the entire gamut of emotions between holy shit, no, you just did not say that, to holy shit, this is a person who believes in God, but I would at any point go have a beer with them and have a discussion with them because they're respectable, they're honest interlocutors, they are simply me with that extra kind of component of having a religious belief, but they're willing to actually kind of examine it. So yes, it goes from both regions, and I mean especially when and we've gotten very good at determining trolls ahead of time, and we'll actually play with them a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, because there are marker indications, and I'm not going to say what they are because then um, if somebody listens to it and wants to avoid it, they can. But there are markers in the call that we can determine that somebody is very likely a troll. And then almost invariably, their reason for calling will be self-conflicting. They'll say that they are like, we had a call, I think, on the last show, so where it was the person was calling in saying that they were agnostic, but that if God isn't real, nothing is real. That was more of a typographical error because we found out that he was not agnostic, he was Gnostic, and then we went down that road and it didn't end very well. But we will oftentimes get these apparently sincere people trying to ask questions. And I've gotten to a point where I hear them ramping up because there'll be little clues. A lot of them like to get together in groups and like have one person call in, and you'll hear everybody else in the background trying not to laugh. They'll be giggling. But the thing that we have is like I said, we have two audio people listening very intently to what's happening on the show. We do a very rigorous call screening of them to try to weed that out. But obviously, once in a while they get in. But one of the I won't call it powers. One of the abilities that I have is I can actively at any point mute a caller. So if I hear them go down the road, and I think I've caught it about 3 times where somebody was trying to use the N word on the show. They go through this whole they'll wait on the phone for 45 minutes on hold. They'll get 10 minutes into their call, and then they will try to rush through and put as many expletives and offensive things as they can in the show because clearly that's funny or something. Um, but I've gotten to the point where I can start to hear them, and as soon as I hear I've caught some of them on the first syllable. So they get the letter N out, and then I mute them, and it's gone. And I love being able to do things like that, and I especially love because when I do that, I'll often look at the comments in the chat, and the chat will run about 10, 15 seconds behind what is actually happening on the show. So there's about a 10-second delay. So when I do something like that, and especially when the hosts call them out, you can just see the chat explode on this person and be like, "Holy crap! Why are people calling in like this? He's just an idiot." It's interesting to see the kind of emotional kind of roller coaster that our chat participants go on with us throughout the show. But yeah, I mean, just to get back a little bit to the coping mechanism is yes, it is not quite gallows humor, but it is we will make fun of callers in a way. We also actually do it on hosts sometimes, but we'll make fun of callers in a way that we could never get away with doing on the show. And that is just really, and we do it in a group setting. Everybody is kind of there, and it's just kind of a cathartic kind of experience for everybody to go through when we
I mean,
have to listen to look at the trees or again, Jesus found my car keys for me or some bad argument.
the truth is you're making fun of your own suffering at that point, you know. I don't even see it as like making fun of the callers. It's like we have to answer these stupid questions.
Yes.
I'm wondering two things in particular about you and about you specifically, right? Because we're talking
Okay.
a lot about the show and the production, but like first off, you were in web development for 20 years, right?
Yes.
That's a big deal. And obviously when you walked into the ACA, you were like, "Hey, this is who I am. This is what I can do." And I'm wondering how that affected, I mean, your role and how those skills specifically translate into what you're doing. And I'm also wondering about your own deconversion because the story you tell is you're already an atheist. You know, you're visiting the Free Thought Library of Austin, right? Right?
Yeah. Um, I guess I'll start with the second question first, and I'll try to synopsize it because it is literally one of those kind of boring stories that span about 25 years of my life. Uh, but I tried to work out kind of what maybe two of the milestones in my life. The one was kind of the first questioning I had, and then one was the realization I might be an atheist and have not known about it. Um, so I grew up in a Roman Catholic family. However, I grew up in a what I call an obligation Catholic family, which meant we didn't go to church every week. We went on holy days of obligation. So we went on Easter, we went on Christmas, and apparently we donated enough to cover us for the rest of the Sundays that we weren't there. Um, Not a lot of like specific religiosity in the home until I did something bad or stupid, and then I would get that legendary Catholic guilt dumped upon me about, oh well, I guess Jesus is just gonna be sad today because you did this thing that I told you not to do.
It's hilarious.
Um, but anyway, very long process. Most of the time, I really didn't give a shit about religion. But kind of my first recollection I have of even like questioning it, because I grew up Catholic, like I said, I grew up Catholic. I went to Catholic school for my first 8 years, to the point where somewhere along the line, I had determined that I was going to go into seminary and become a priest. So this is a I don't want to call it a 180 because it's like a 420. I did a full circle and then turned and kept going the other way. I did the altar boy thing. I was the most important altar boy in the church because I was the guy that got to number one carry the incense in and out of the church. And then when they did the whole anointing of the Eucharist and the anointing of the wine, I got to be the guy that ring the little bell to emphasize it to everybody that this was a significant point in the service. Um, but I specifically remember talking to the priest after one of these services because it was bothering me. In that particular service, we would usually do an offering for something, but in this particular one, we did three of them. We did one offering for just general fundraising for the church. We did an offering for church improvements. It's the stereotypical, we need to fix our roof. Please give us more money. And then for whatever reason, we had these, I guess, traveling missionaries from other countries. And I can't even remember the country, but all I remember is that we needed to raise money to buy goats for families in another country. And that was the third offering that we did. So after that, and after everything was, I was talking to the priest, and I asked him what I thought was an innocent question. It's like, why does God need all this money, all these offerings? Isn't he like powerful? Couldn't he just give those people goats, and couldn't he just fix the roof and give you the money he need?
That's like the thread that you tug that unravels
Yes,
everything right there.
And
Like,
yes.
the
And I wasn't
shame,
even,
shame, too much logic, shame, no, bad.
how could you, Greg?
and I was asking it in full good faith because I wanted to know, I mean, why is this necessary? God can do everything. He's real. Why does he need us to keep giving him this money for it? And I kind of got this wishy-washy, well, God can do it, but he wants to give human beings the opportunity to help each other, so that's why you have to give him money. And that never really sat very well with me, but I like 8, 9 years old. I didn't have any really critical thinking skills at that point, so I just took it. Looking back in retrospect, that was kind of the first maybe questioning that I had. And then obviously more and more question. I'm the stereotypical atheist where when I was religious, I kept asking all these questions that made everybody uncomfortable, and they just finally kind of stopped acknowledging me if I raised my hand to ask a question. It kind of got to that point. But the kind of what I might call epiphany moment was actually when I was working. I was in my 30s probably. So that's I'm trying to establish maybe the time span of this. Most of that time it had been a gradual deconstruction from Catholic to I tried like Christian for a little while. I tried youth groups and none of it really stuck with me. But when I was working, I specifically remember there was another developer that I worked with and became really good friends. And a work email came out from one of our producers, and it was something had gone horribly wrong. But all I remember out of the email was this producer in a work environment typing in this email, "Oh dear sweet sweet baby Jesus, why is this happening?" Which I thought was odd. But what I didn't know is my coworker was an atheist. And he basically marched into this person's office and says, "Why are you putting all this religious bullshit in a work email? What does this have to do with anything that we're doing?" And I heard them arguing, and I heard the word atheist come out of his mouth. And I don't think I'd ever kind of conceptualized what that meant. So I was able to go on Google, look it up, and find the definition. Somebody lacking a belief in God, and it hit me. Holy, is that actually something that's possible? Can people not believe in God? Which led obviously to the inevitable question, do I even really believe in God at this point? So that kind of snowballed into me making that kind of that silent thought of trying it out. Let's see if I get hit by lightning, thinking I'm an atheist. And I look up and no lightning hits me. So I say it out loud and no lightning still hits me. So just kind of continue on for there. But that's kind of my very boring. I gave you the highlights because the rest of it is just me. I don't really give a shit
I mean,
about
there's
religion.
nothing boring about that. It's incredibly relatable.
Yeah.
So many people have the exact same experience where they're like, oh, wait, it's okay to question this, and there's other people who feel this way, and it opens up the world in a
Yeah.
massive way, you know?
But
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I forgot the
Oh,
number
that's
one.
okay. I was asking about your, I mean, you mentioned that you worked for 20 years as a web developer. You worked in Hollywood too. How do all these skills translate to the ACA, you know?
Um, one of the advantages I got is that because we're working with major Hollywood studios, I was involved with a lot of the media plans that they had. So I found out a lot of the things that they would do to promote like a major motion picture or promote like a major convention like the D23 convention back at the time, or a lot of their other marketing materials. So I got not just an understanding of what they do, but I was involved in the media plan. So literally how to implement these things in the most effective way to get them in the front of the most eyes that will have a chance of converting them into ticket buying viewers of this movie or this event. Obviously, the concepts were familiar to me. Um, I was not necessarily able to implement a lot of them because these marketing plans come with multi-million dollar budgets that are effectively executed within a 6 week period before the movie or the event comes out. So this is a very small window of time, and they just absolutely blitz all the media that they can, billboards, television commercials, internet stuff, promos, all this. But I got to kind of see what the mentality was behind it and a little bit of the psychology behind what is it that people are watching and how to evaluate how your marketing is working and then adapt it to what it is you're seeing from your actual viewers. So I think that's probably the kind of the biggest takeaway from that, other than just the practical video editing skills, the Photoshop skills, the things of that sort. So yeah, that I think it was definitely helpful to me, and I've been able to use it. I think fairly effectively. We haven't gone out of business, so I'd call that somewhat effective.
Hey, that's cool. I'm wondering too, like, what do you see as the tangible benefits, besides the obvious, of atheist activism? Like, obviously, you do the show, you do appearances and events and things like that. I mean, like, I don't know, maybe you can elaborate on that.
Um, I think one of the biggest uh, kind of not necessarily obvious results of doing activism is being able to dispel the myth of what an atheist is. And it's not just necessarily the shows that we do, because we do personal appearances, we do things in the community and that sort. And it's dispelling this imposed upon us perception, especially by religious people who recognize that whether or not we are trying to, we are the greatest threat to them retaining their congregations. Because much like it was for me, as soon as you plant that little seed of doubt or pull that little thread and start the process, and that's really what we are striving to do. I'm not trying to deconvert anybody on the show. I'm trying to just introduce that little thing that might kind of burrow in their mind, and 3 days later they might reflect upon it again and say, well, oh, yeah, I thought I believed this thing because of this thing that I saw them completely annihilate on a show. What else could I possibly be thinking that's wrong? So, a combination of that and a combination of, yeah, I mean, I'm an atheist. My wife is also an atheist, and we get in different ways, her, probably her more so than me, is that dumbfounded look from a religious person who sees us doing these good things, helping people, being supportive, volunteering for things, and the inevitable kind of reaction from them is, "Oh my God, God is working through you. You're a godsend." And then to have that realization that no, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in all that. So the disparity between the evil atheist that they see and the good person that they see doing these things, I think confuses their brain and maybe breaks them a little bit out of that kind of segment or that structured opinion that they have of us. And I think the activism does that, whether it's the firebrand atheists, whether it's kind of the more question and answer atheists, whether it's the compassionate ones, each one of them will kind of speak to a different segment. But I think just getting it out there that we are just people with one less God belief generally than most of the other people out there.
Yeah, well, something I'm wondering about too is obviously a lot of people see the debate content, and I'm sure you're familiar with the Reddit atheist meme that's popped up like in the past decade or so, which people will throw that at you as if it's a defeater, and it's like, okay, whatever, nerd, like your God is still not real, and you're perpetuating a really, really, really negative and disastrous, constricting plan for society, right? And I'm wondering if, like, how has the programming and your vision, well, the vision for the ACA, changed over the decades? You know, like, is it like to do less debate content, to do other kinds of content?
Um, a lot of it is fairly well driven on what our audience seems to respond to most. And statistically and analytically, they respond to us talking to people on the phone above everything else. There are a few breakout exceptions, as there is apt to be. But for the most part, what people watch and one of the things that we do is we'll take a full episode and cut it down specifically into just a single call, which is more digestible for most YouTube people. But we will see that those calls almost invariably will do better than the full episode itself because they can look at for a specific topic of their interest and look at that and listen to it and see how it's argued and see what's being brought up by a theist and see how we are kind of countering that as atheists. And I think that has kind of been a hallmark throughout the run of the show. It's been treated in different ways. Sometimes it is you're an idiot. I can't believe you're coming up with this sort of a stupid thing, to the flip side, which is, I've been there. I used to be a religious person. I understand why you're saying these things, but here's why those things are not really applicable, or they're not valid, or they're not true. Um, but I think one of the things I kind of strive for, and one of the kind of mantras, I guess, one of the few mantras that I actually have, that we have at the ACA, is that in all ways possible, we strive to attack ideas and not individuals. We want to go after the bad thinking that you have, or the incorrect way of thinking that you have, confront the ideas that you have, and try as best as we can to maintain civility and maintain some sort of rapport with the caller. Because it has been the case, and it's happened probably 10, 15 times so far. We will have somebody call in, and one of the names I've seen in the chat already is one of those individuals. I won't call out the caller by name, but this is a person who called in adamantly. There is a God. You all are stupid for not believing in God. And now he's kind of evolved into, I've listened to a lot of what you said, and now I'm starting to doubt that belief myself. Um, which is, I think, one of the most powerful things that we can do with the activism, is actually, despite what religious people say, we do actually have the ability to change minds.
Well, that's a profound thing to say, Greg, and it's amazing to hear. We see journeys like, obviously from here, we see journeys like that happen a lot. And on that, I wanted to ask, with these evolutions over time, where do you see ACA? What do you see ACA's impact over the next 5 years, or where do you see the show going? If you could, your best guess. I know that's a difficult question because we live in a very changing landscape, but where would you see this going?
One of the things that we've done, and it's kind of a factor of being a nonprofit. None of the hosts that we have on our shows get paid. So some hosts will stay longer, some hosts will come on just for a very short time and participate. But one of the things I'm trying to cultivate is to recognize what I can identify as kind of a mentality shift. And I think this somewhat correlates with the some of the, like, the Pew research that indicates that we are slowly and progressively becoming a less religious country. And I'm seeing this reflected in kind of, especially the younger generations.
Oh yeah, if
Um,
y'all have not seen that graph that Greg is referring to, sometimes to make myself feel a little more hopeful about the future, I will just look at that chart.
yes. And if you haven't seen the chart, I think the biggest takeaway from it is that, and I don't have the exact numbers, but I think for the first time in history, those identifying as some flavor of non-religious have outgrown the percentage of people identifying as Christian. And I think that is kind of what inspires me to keep doing. And well, I see the conversations shifting from this very adamant, almost insulting thing, to wanting to have more nuanced, more deep conversations about the things that they believe, and being able to kind of inspect them and identify. And the other thing that we have going for us is we are now in the biggest, or we are now in an age where more information is available to us via our cell phones than people back in history have had with full libraries of content. And it's very easy and very quick to kind of fact check things or find out things. And obviously there is the dark side of it, where people are putting out intentionally misleading content, or even if they're not being intentionally misleading, they're putting out content that you can find 10 different people who will take different sides of a different thing and seem to be convincing. So it is a lot more, I think, information to kind of sift through. But I think younger generations are becoming more adept because they are growing up with the technology necessary to do this. My granddaughter is like 7 months old, and she's already starting to work our phones and take the phones away from us and talk to us on the phones if we do like a video call or something like that. And that's encouraging to me because it is one of the ways, and I think it's one of the big contributors to this shift in ideology, in that they're not dependent upon listening to their parents only or listening to their priest only. Their priest says something and they can sit in the pews and pull up Google and find out whether or not that thing is correct. And every time they're presented with something that doesn't add up, that adds a little bit more doubt to them. So I see going forward trying to encourage more of those conversations and show that atheists are not a group of people to combat against, but possibly a group of people to work with to come to a better understanding of how things really are.
What an inspiring way to end that question. That is no, really, I can't, I don't know what else to add. That was wonderful. You know, we've seen a little bit of that reflected, pushing back against the purity culture movement of students in classrooms. I had my purity culture taught to me in the church as well as public school, and an educator, in
Yes.
quotations, educator for those listening, I'm using air quotes, will say something and then they'll just pull up Google and, well, uh, Planned Parenthood says you're wrong.
Yes.
That. And that's just that's an I really appreciate you instilling us a little bit of hope for the next generation and
Yes.
future of religiosity or lack thereof in the country. And with that, I feel ready to move to Q&A if you, unless are there any other additional thoughts that you would like to share before we move to questions?
Um, just kind of one overriding thought, and it's something that kind of nonprofits always kind of struggle with, and that is being able to uh, get volunteers in. A lot of people, and I think there's a variety of reasons why people might be hesitant to volunteer with us. They may see the ACA and especially the atheist experience as this big monolithic, super sophisticated thing, and there's no chance that they could ever come in and do anything with it or participate in it. They're just happy to watch it. Um, and I do want to say the lifeblood of any nonprofit is the volunteers that they have. It is the volunteers that make everything run. With all the shows that we put on 4 shows currently, 1 episode a week. We run about 5 to 7 clips um, per show per week, depending upon call volume. And then we have been doing, if you've seen the channels, we do these throwback videos where we go back into older episodes and introduce new audiences to concepts that we've had before. And ironically, we start hearing the same bad arguments 20 years ago that have not graduated in any sort of intelligence. And we're hearing them on the next show the next week. But really, the lifeblood of any organization is their volunteers. So if anybody has ever thought about, hey, I watched that Forrest Valkai guy. I'm smart too. I could do that possibly, or even along the other lines. You're like, I watch the show. I love Forrest, but I could never get up on camera and do what he does. I really want to say if you have any sort of drive to become more involved, whether it's with RFR. And again, RFR, I don't think I have to go on very much about the good work that RFR does. Um, but if it's something that you've kind of been interested in, and I want to make sure it's not relegated to just being on camera and talking to theists. If you have like an idea for something that we don't do that you think would be absolutely wonderful, I encourage you to get in contact with us. Any person interested in coming in and volunteering will be talked to by our volunteer coordinator. And if it is somebody who seems to be interested in the production side, they'll come across to me. And Katie and I, you may have heard the name Katie on the shows before. Katie is my associate producer. I have to make sure I say that right, otherwise I get in trouble. Yeah, associate producer. Um, We will actually sit down and talk with you and kind of find out where you might fit best, whether it's you want to be a host and we'll walk you through the process of doing that. You want to be a crew member, you want to run the video, the audio, you want to just write show notes, whatever you want to do, just become involved. You'll learn a lot. You'll meet a lot of really good people, a lot of really dedicated people. And it's seemingly one of the few ways that we can kind of still instill a sense of community, because that is, I know one of the things that atheists struggle with is that sense of community without turning it into church. So if you are interested, please reach out. I think there's a link to a volunteer form that we have for the ACA. Either way, um, just
Yeah, I made sure to post all your links in the
yeah.
chat. So volunteer
Okay.
with the ACA, it's right there. But honestly, you can also get to it from the main ACA website, right?
Yep. You can go to atheist-community.org and there is a volunteer button prominently placed on the main menu on the top. So
Awesome, awesome. So inspiring, so incredible, and really thank you for all the work you've done. I mean, I know personally that you've helped so many people realize that they're not alone and that, you know,
yeah.
religion doesn't need to have a stranglehold over everybody's lives. You know, it's incredible. And you're right. People should volunteer. And with that, I think that we're good to move on to the poll, right? Let's do that.
Okay.
See how we did.
Yes. Daniel, this would be our first time launching the poll, or my first time. I think I can do it, unless let's see, poll.
Well, no,
Wait.
I'm going to click share results. We got it.
Oh, yay. Okay, you have that ability. Great.
I have superpowers. It's really exciting. Yeah.
Thank
So,
you.
what is so Glenda, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Yes. What is your favorite kind of atheist content? 20% said debates, 26% said call-in shows, 40% said deconversion stories, 37% explainer videos, 20% other, and then 0% said none. So it looks like deconversion stories are the favorite. I personally love them. I so appreciate that. The
Mhm.
second question, how many seasons of the ACA Atheist Experience have aired? 10 had 7%, 15, 27%, 29, 47%, and 40, which was only 20% voted. And could you please, Greg, drum roll, how many seasons? What was the answer to that?
Who's got it?
The Atheist Experience is currently in its 29th season.
Wow. Okay, so most people knew the right answer. 29 seasons. Wow, that is
I think you got a lot of fans in here.
a lot of
There you go.
And which version of the Matrix would you want to live in? 20% said the OG, the original Matrix. 0% said Matrix Reloaded, 7% said Matrix Revolutions, 10% said Matrix Resurrection, 0% said Animatrix, and honestly, that's one of my favorites. It's a really beautiful film. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it.
Excellent.
0% and 0% for both Enter the Matrix and The Path of Neo, and then 57% said none of the above, which I appreciate. It's like, that's a dystopia I don't necessarily want to live in. And 7% said other. So that was, I appreciate that question. Yes, when I saw, I was like, what if I don't want to live? And the whole point is that it's bad. Like,
I think
Well,
it's just franchise fatigue there. Come on.
right.
You
yeah.
don't want to download Kung Fu into your head and just, go on a rampage.
And yes, to which episode of the Animatrix Matrix, the really hot one where they're like doing the like like fighting with the katanas and cutting off each
And
other.
cutting off each other's clothes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hot. That was a very important awakening for me when I saw that at like
Yes.
14 or whatever. Like, I really like this.
And the best, I think the best part of that, and I'm sure I've watched it several times, is the fact that they conduct the entire fight blindfolded, but
Yeah.
there are these tiny little moments
Oh
where
yeah.
they've done something and they like peek through the blindfold to kind of see
Gosh, I
where
haven't
things are
seen
at.
it.
And
I haven't seen it in years. So I'll have to rewatch it. I remember it being very impactful when I first saw
yeah.
it. Okay, well then we I think we have some time for some questions. I'll go ahead and start off, and Daniel and I will just go back and forth.
Okay.
The
We have a lot of good
uh,
ones. We have a lot of questions here.
uh, Greg, are you good for some questions, or you need a bio break or real quick?
I will be here as long as anybody can stomach listening to me, I guess. So
Huzzah! Okay. Well, the first one is about questions. What types of questions from callers are your favorites to get?
I think the questions that are honestly asked, and a lot of the callers will call in and say, I have this question. I just want you to know I'm not trying to be an asshole by asking this. I'm sorry, I don't know if I can
You can
curse.
curse.
Okay,
There's
good.
no fucking swearing on this fucking show, Greg.
Well,
Get out.
shit. I wish I knew that beforehand. But no, the questions that kind of come in that are these very honest questions, especially from kind of people in who are in some stage of deconversion, because they will come in, they will have what otherwise could sound like a facetious question or like a trolley question, maybe. And they're asking these things because they're trying to actually work through their deconversion, and this is like a stumbling block for them. Um, Commonly, one of our questions is where do atheists get their morals from if they don't have an objective rule giver kind of thing? And we'll have people call in deconstruction say this is kind of something that keeps getting prevented to me. If I leave religion, then I'm going to lose all of this moral ground that I have, and I will do horrible things. Um, so it's asking the question honestly because they really want an answer, as opposed to people who ask it and just want to try and be douchey about it, I guess.
Yeah, no, that is an exhausting question, but yeah, I mean, it is important that people get to ask their questions, right? I mean, anyway, yeah, so what is something you would like everyone to know before calling into your show?
One of the things I would like people to know is that we will give you we will reciprocate in the amount of respect that you give us, irregardless of kind of the topic of your call. If you want to come, like I said, if you want to come in, and my daughter's term, if you want to be a douche canoe and come in and just be absolutely horrible, we will give you a little bit of rope, try and talk you off the ledge. But if you continue, we will reciprocate. And our favorite thing to do is put you on hold, make you listen to us talk, and then we say, okay, with that said, have a good day, hang up, and not let you get back in and talk more vitriolic crap. That is one of the wonderful public services we offer as the ACA. But yeah, I mean, come in, try to be as honest as you can, and rule number one, do not lie to the call screeners. Lying to our call screeners is the quickest way for you to get kicked off the show and not be heard anymore. Because if you call in and you say you want to ask a question about the ontological argument, and you start off your call by saying, well, I had a question. I know I talked to the call screener, but what I really wanted to ask you was this other thing. You can talk about the thing you called in and told our call screener about, or you can go away and have a wonderful day.
Well, that ties
So,
into the answer to your first question is what your favorite types of calls are just people who are being genuine and
yes.
honest. And on that, has there ever been I love this question. Has there ever been a call that had an argument or question that didn't convert you to religion, but you thought was an actually difficult question or made a really good point? If so, what was the question and the point that they made?
In general, I would probably say I can't think of anything because having a novel question or a novel approach is very extremely rare for what we do. They may have a little bit of nuance to it. So they might go from the cosmological argument to the Kalam cosmological argument, and try and think that that is something compelling for us. But a lot of it is just regurgitated and repackaged arguments that we've talked about all the time. So I wouldn't really say there was any particular argument that maybe kind of think, well, I'm not convinced, but that is a really good argument. I can't kind of place my finger on anything that I would consider to be that way. Hopefully not that. That's not memory failing me, but I can't really think of anything, I guess.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, there's another question that's similar, and do you ever get calls from people of religions other than Christianity, and are their questions or arguments ever different, surprising, or bizarre?
Because primarily our audience is US based, the vast majority of what we get are calls about Christianity. But we have, maybe more increasingly, we have some Islamic apologists calling in, which I always enjoy, especially when like Secular Rarity is on, because a little known thing about Secular Rarity is that he is very knowledgeable. He looks like the guy that hangs out on the beach and rents surfboards, but you get him in a conversation about Islam, and there's a very famous clip of him calling out a Muslim, saying that the Muslim asked him, "Well, if you heard God talking to you, do you think it would be him?" And Secular Rarity turned the question around to the Islamic person, and they answered yes. I didn't know it at the time, but there is a tenet in Islam that if you hear some voice telling you that they are God, then they are absolutely not God. And it is a very big sin to insinuate that it is God audibly talking to you. And he called this person out, and this person, you could hear the tires screeching in reverse from how hard he was backpedaling away from that statement. I mean, yeah, we get people who assume that we don't know things and then get stuck when we actually call them on things. But yes, we've gotten them from, I think probably some of the weirdest calls we've gotten are Reiki practitioners, because that is just some wild shit.
Yeah,
Um,
that's one of the weirdest things that I've encountered personally. I used to do yoga at a place and they would do that, and I'm like, wait, so they're just moving their hands over you? I don't.
yes.
Real quick, in 20 words or less, Greg, can you explain what Reiki is for anybody who's here who doesn't know?
Might as well, yeah.
I mean, I'm really bad at it. I don't think
Bad
I
at
have.
Reiki?
Well, I hope not. That would be a surprise to me. But um, so I guess suffice it to say, I don't have a full understanding, but it is a very supernaturally. It's along the lines of like healing stones and putting hands on people and healing them with your energy and things of that. It's um, it's a novelty when we get those calls, and it's always entertaining to walk them through and all the anecdotal proofs of the existence of this somebody put their hands on me and healed me, and my lung cancer went away for the duration of that day, and then they went back to their treatments.
Yeah, so yes, it's magical hand hovering that is supposed to heal you, but of
Yeah.
course probably does not. I think we have time for one more question each. I'll take one and then Daniel will take one more. Let's do in what significant ways do you think the separation of church and state has changed in the US over the last 10 years, especially if you've noticed things you don't think get discussed enough? I like the second part of that question quite a bit.
Wow, that's extremely topical.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. You can keep it brief to just something, if you just want a little thought, that's okay.
I will say, because I'm in no way in this answer is reflecting the opinions or the ideas of the atheist community of Austin, being a 501(c)(3) and having to avoid these sort of political things. Um, I've kind of always seen some lack of the separation, whether it be earlier on, like in the Obama era, and still the affirmation of National Day of Prayer, which I always found heavily antithetical to keeping religion and government separate. You have a government sponsoring this event, naming a day, and then expecting everybody to apparently pray unspokenly to their God of choice. But I mean, fast forward to where we're at right now, and we've got a Paula White Office of Anti-Christian Bias. We've got Trump Bibles. We've got all of these things which in my earlier years would absolutely not be acceptable. But it seems like they're is more and more an incursion and an intentional incursion. Things like Project 2025, which set out to specifically target legislation that they fully expect to fail either in presentation or on appeal. But they're basically flooding the government with all of these sort of religion-related things. It happens federal level, it happens state level, it happens local level. And it's all kind of this coordinated plan to put God back in our country and government when historically we have done a pretty good line of keeping those two separate. But I'm trying to stay positive and look at the things that people are doing. I'm just seeing it getting to a level I can't remember it being at before, where it's not just kind of the covert acceptance of religion and government intertwining, but it is this deliberate, open, advertised incursion of the two. And then at the same time, this kind of counterintuitive propaganda indicating that this is the way it's always been. We're the United States, it was based on Christian values. This restatement of things that have been not just on our show, but on by various people kind of debunked. But they're relying on people who generally get their information not because they've gone through and they researched the topic and they've read up on it and found out not only what their positions support, but what opposing positions come up with. And they turn on Fox News and they vegetate and they just listen to whatever is kind of spoon-fed to them. So yeah, I think it is much worse than it has been in what I can recall of history. But again, there are organizations like the both of ours who are actively kind of fighting against that. So there is, I feel like, some measure of hope at least.
Yeah, anti-intellectualism, compulsory religiosity. We're getting there. It's very unfortunate. It's very scary, and all we can do is hold the line, right?
Yeah.
I have a very simple question for you before we move into our wrap-up procedure, and
Okay.
that is any update on secular sexuality possibly coming back?
Um, to be honest, that show kind of, and I'm maybe gonna overshare a little bit.
You
Uh,
cannot. You can tell me no if you.
no, it's fine. I'm fairly open about everything. Secular sexuality, for those of you who may not know, has an absolute, dare I use the term, intimate connection with RfR because secular sexuality started out as the podcast of Dr. Ray. And Dr. Ray kind of bequeathed the property over to the ACA, I think with only a few caveats. One of those being the end show tagline, which was basically give yourself a big old orgasm, or better yet, give somebody else one. I think that was one of the deal breakers. If we didn't say that every show, then we would absolutely not be given the show. But for me, it was probably the most educational show from a standpoint of the differences in society that I was kind of cloistered away from being a Roman Catholic. I can honestly say that in the story of meeting my first gay man was mortifying, but maybe later on in the hangout I'll tell that story. But um, it taught me more, and especially people like Christy Powell, who has intimate knowledge of the subject. He's a certified therapist in the field. So having a therapist explain to me these topics that I never heard of. I came to the ACA. I had no idea what non-binary meant. I'm a computer guy. I mean, does that mean we're not dealing in ones and zeros? We're dealing with some other numeric system. Walking through the show and admittedly, some of the topics we covered on the show kind of gave me that cringy, weird feeling, but I think it was something that was necessary. And I think it's something we strive to do as a necessary component. We want to introduce people to things that make them uncomfortable to show that they are not unnatural, they are not sinful, they are not these terrible things. They are just different choices that people make. And obviously, as long as they are not harming themselves, they're not harming other people, and it is consensual with everybody that is being involved in the activities, there's no reason for other people to need to adjudicate those things. But to get to the question, it is an ongoing goal of mine to be able to bring the show back. The complication is that Christy is, like I said, he's a full-time therapist, and he was also the full-time producer of the show, acquiring guests, writing the scripts for the shows. He was spending another 30 hours a week just keeping the show going. And that kind of worked when he was working towards his license. But once he got his license, everything kind of complicated for him. So I think it's more a logistical thing of being able to find the right people, the right combination of personalities to bring the show back. But I would absolutely love to do so.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you for that.
Hmm.
Yeah, we really appreciate you being here. Let me see here. Glenda, do you want to announce the next speakers and topics?
I surely can. Let me scroll. Yes. Okay. So while I will not be there, I'm going to be romping around in the middle of a P&W forest at a festival. Next RfRx is so sorry. Oh, wait, you know what? We are still in the process of confirming next week's topic. So pardon us, pardon the dust. Sometimes we do things a little last minute, but we do have Ross Blotcher and Bailey Harris coming up. I'm very excited for those. I would encourage you just to keep up to date with when we have this information to share with you, to follow us on social media. It really helps us out. So we're going to post all these links in the chat. We are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and again, most of our previous recordings are on our YouTube channel. So if you want to know when we settle on who's going to be here next week, just follow us on our socials and we will be sure to post the second we have a guest confirmed. So, and with that, I would like to, and I'm very sorry, do we talk about the benefits of volunteering before we move on to the moment? I can't remember exactly when we have the moment.
Let's just do the moment now.
Okay, let's just do the moment now. You would think I've done this for 5 years. Do I remember when to do the moment? No, I don't. I have no brain cells, none, maybe 2 that they rub together. Okay, for the moment, I would like to bring on our wonderful, fearless leader, Dr. Daryl Ray. Thank you so much for handling our excessive speaking.
Well, don't ask me to donate any brain cells because I don't have any extras to give away tonight. I'm just letting you know that. Greg, thank you so much for coming on. And like I said in the pre-show, I'm surprised we haven't had you on earlier, but I really appreciate you coming on. And I think a lot of people are really curious about, what's going on in the backstory with the ACA. And I was pleased that we could hear a lot of that. I'll just tell everybody this is in Greg's present that since the very beginning of Recovering from Religion, the ACA has been 172% supportive of what we do. I can't prove, I don't have good statistics, but my estimate is a minimum of 10% of the people that call us or chatting with us found us through the ACA or one of the ACA shows. I mean, there are other shows that refer people to us, but that's a pretty big chunk of people that find us through you, Greg. So what you guys are doing is great stuff, and I've always loved what you guys are doing, and I appreciate that you see fit to support us, and your hosts frequently recommend what we can do, and we send people back to you. I don't know if you realize, but when people chat with us, sometimes they say, I'd like to see more content. Where do I find it? You're top of the list in most cases. So
Yeah,
it's a two-way street. But I think both of our goals is to, in different ways, to make an impact on the world, which leads me something you came close to saying, but I want to articulate it because I feel it's important. I don't think there's any other, in this day and age, there's nowhere else that you can go and watch one human talking to another human about an important topic and see the use of logic and street epistemology and Socratic questioning done as well as you guys do it. I mean, literally, you can't go on a Christian media show and watch two people talking.
Yeah.
There's no other place. You can't Google it. You can't use AI, ChatGPT. This is a unique resource for the planet. It's not just for atheists. It's people could benefit from just seeing the incredible intelligence, knowledge, and wit of the people that run your shows, that the faces of your shows. So I'm in awe of them. Whenever I've been on some of your shows, I'm thinking I'm the idiot in this room. Every time I've been on a show, I always think the co-host is far more knowledgeable. Of course, they've been doing it for years a lot of times, and I don't get on that often, but it really is a valuable resource. And it's like I think in some ways, Greg, it's hand in glove. I think you guys dovetail with what we do in great ways, and I think what we do dovetails with what you do, and we're not competing with each other. It's not like we're stealing from each other or whatever. We're supporting each other. So my short answer is thanks for all you do, and thanks for being a great ally.
I'd kind of like to reciprocate that a little bit, and I think what you're saying is absolutely true. I think it's a truly beneficial symbiotic relationship for both of us. I realize that we are kind of maybe the front facing or the frontline people that more people see. But to kind of nutshell this, we talk to people, and I feel like once the show is done, everybody breathes a sigh of relief. They grab their favorite beverage and they kind of move on with their lives. When we refer them to you, I'm sure that is not the case. You are working with people and walking them through some of the most traumatic or the most pivotal points in their life. So I absolutely that is one of the reasons why we have no qualms whatsoever sending people to RFR or even some of the other affiliated ones. Secular Therapy Project, we do.
Right.
It's a great peace of mind to be able to know that we are actually referring this person who needs help to somebody who will absolutely help them, and not in a way that requires them to vow faith and allegiance to Sky Daddy, basically. So I really do appreciate what you do, and I think we could kind of make a good team in a lot
do
of ways.
too. Thank you. I love hearing that. That's wonderful. I also want to say Greg was pussyfooting around asking for volunteers, and I'm not going to pussyfoot around. I'm going to say if you got skills that can help the ACA, then go do it. We're not in competition with anybody. We've had volunteers that work for us and for ACA, so there's no we don't have any lockdown on anybody, and ACA is just like us. They always need volunteers. But certain skill sets could benefit one organization maybe better than the other. So contact them and tell them you'd like to volunteer if your skill set fits with what they need. Also, you don't need to apologize in any way. I don't know if you were or not about secular sexuality. I did that podcast. I did as an audio only podcast for 3 years. And Greg, it ate my lunch. It took over. It took over my life. And I loved it. I would not go back and change anything. I really had fun doing it. And there was a lot of extremely good content. I still use the content. You guys preserve it for us, but I still put people back, especially that the jealousy program that I did. That seems to be super popular, at least anyway. But whether you bring it back or not, I really appreciated that you took it and ran with it and gave it a good shot. I assumed you didn't get the viewership you needed, and that's why it dropped. And it's none of my business why it dropped, but I did appreciate all that you guys put into it, and I really appreciated Christy. I could not have done what Christy did, and I know how difficult it was for me to do the podcast. It's orders of magnitude bigger to do what you guys do. So
yeah,
kudos to you no matter what. I consider it and a lot of the shows and clips and stuff are still up. So that was
Yes.
really, there's some really good education. And the way Christie approached it and his co-hosts, I think was very sensitive and well educated, and everything about the show was first class. Even if you did get the creeps occasionally.
Oh, well, like I said, I mean, those were some of the best learning moments from me. And I won't go specifically, but yeah, there were several moments where the entire crew was kind of leaning back in their chairs away from the screen because something came up that just made us all uncomfortable. But I think that's
Uh-huh.
part of what needs to be done.
It
We need to
is.
discuss these things, and you decide, okay, that's not something I like, but I don't have to condemn that. I don't have to call it sinful. It is just something that doesn't appeal to me particularly.
Yeah. Right.
And we learn to do that. But yeah, just one quick little aside. One of the things I really do like about being a nonprofit in this space doing the shows is that unlike a commercial entity, we are not relying on income or anything. The only thing that is driving us is what we are producing supporting our mission. So secular sexuality, yeah, it honestly it did not make us money. If we were a corporate entity, it probably wouldn't have gone on as long as it did. The kind of the reason it ended was just kind of a logistical issue to a large degree. I would love to bring it back. I've been looking to bring it back in a new incarnation. Um, we just have to have everything in place to be able to support it correctly. So,
Right. Right. Well, if I can be of help there, I'm happy to help. Don't ask me to be a significant player, though. I got too many other things on my plate.
yeah, you got a lot of stuff going on. I know.
But I'm always happy to talk about sex.
Oh,
Or
yes. I
that's
think you
what
wrote
Gail thinks I
you wrote a
do.
book on that, I think, or something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all I got. Back to whoever, Daniel or Glenda.
Yeah, very cool. Well, yeah, on that note, I just wanted to say a brief word about, the benefits of volunteering. We here at RFR, we find fulfillment in helping other people. Healing can come from helping others, and we find meaning and purpose, and you can too. We need people. We always need more volunteers. There are all sorts of jobs. You can help us crush trolls here in RfRx. You can help us co-host. You can also man the helpline, support the online community, IT support. We always need more people. And well, to volunteer, the link is right over here in the chat, but you can find it right on our homepage. And there's also a 3-minute video which explains everything we do in a very, very, very concise 3-minute span of time. That is also there. And with that, I think we're done and we're going to head on into the Hangout. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us.